It is a lengthy NBA injury report coming up on Wednesday, guys. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. 12 games, lots of players on the injury report to talk about. Also, something that I should mention here, Adam is going to be gone for the rest of the week. He's going to be traveling out for the NBA Live final for DraftKings. So wish him luck. Do that in the comment section below, as well as if you guys have any questions for today's slate, leave them below. Also, if you guys haven't signed up for FanUp yet, they sponsor the NBA injury report. If you sign up for FanUp, use the promo code Awesemo, get yourself $25 of free money and also $20 in their site currency there. So free money that you don't have to make any kind of deposit for. You just sign up at FanUp using that promo code Awesemo. Now talking about today's injury report. It's a long one. Starting with Nikola Vucevic for the Chicago Bulls. He's questionable. We've seen him on the injury report quite a bit now over the last week or so. Tristan Thompson started in his place last game. Adam, will we see the same out of Tristan Thompson? And is he going to stay out of foul trouble if he starts today?
Yeah, I mean, I expect that if Vooch is out, that you get Thompson in the starting lineup again. He ended up playing between 28 and 30 minutes last game. That would be my expectation again. From a fouling standpoint, obviously a matchup with Detroit doesn't carry quite the same risks that a matchup with Joel Embiid does, but certainly, still could get in foul trouble. But one way or the other, I would expect him to be playing at least 28 to 30 minutes. He has become more expensive, but on DraftKings, he still has that power forward eligibility as well, which just makes it really easy to get to him if he's starting in place of Vooch.
Yeah, the benefit of that one game that him and Vooch both started in the front court, the end result is that we do have, at least for now, Tristan Thompson power forward and center eligibility. And on the other side of the game, Detroit Pistons, they're dealing with front court issues of their own because Isaiah Stewart is out. Now, typically not a team in Detroit that we've targeted all that heavily this year just because they've played such a deep rotation. But do you see it becoming tighter now that Isaiah Stewart is out? And is there anybody to get to here outside of Marvin Bagley?
I think Bagley's the main piece. What we saw in the second half last game was that Bagley and Kelly Olynyk basically played center. Olynyk didn't play alongside Bagley. I think that is important because, and it goes back to what you had just said about Detroit typically running a deep rotation. You could certainly see, Bagley plays 30 minutes and then Olynyk gets up to 24, 25. But based on the rotations we've seen from them, there's no real reason to think that's the likely case. I think it's more likely that you get 30 minutes from Bagley, you get 18 from Olynyk, and then Isaiah Livers is just in the rotation playing basically as, the backup to Jeremy Grant, for example. So, assuming that's going to be the case, it makes Bagley stand out. He also has power forward eligibility. He's averaged a little over a fantasy point per minute since joining Detroit. He's a, just pretty solid fantasy producer. It makes him look good. But beyond that, just based on the rotations we've seen from Detroit, it makes it difficult for me to like much else.
And of course, we could hardly do one of these shows without mentioning that Jimmy Butler's on the injury report. Sinus infection from this time, yet another debilitating injury that Jimmy Butler's dealing with. A little stuffed up today. So he's questionable to play. Caleb Martin also questionable. We saw Victor Oladipo come back last game, and it seems like he's going to at least take some usage on the second unit. Also, that meant there was no Max Strus in the rotation last game. There was no Gabe Vincent in the rotation, at least not until garbage time. So for tonight, if there is no Jimmy Butler and no Caleb Martin, how do you see the rotation changing for the Miami Heat in terms of guys we want to get to?
Yeah, I mean, if they're both out, then I don't even really know who would start. I assume it would be Max Strus, but I mean, you could replace Butler with Hero. You could replace him with Gabe Vincent and, have Lowry and Vincent play alongside each other. But I think the main beneficiaries would be, just Bam, Hero, and Lowry, because you would expect a usage bump for Lowry and Bam if Butler is out. You would expect additional playing time for Tyler Hero. The issue is that all these guys are relatively expensive, though. So while they would all look better if Butler is out, I still think it's difficult to really prioritize any of them at their respective salaries.
Yeah, also a fairly difficult matchup against the Phoenix Suns. Now, the next game here, the Houston Rockets, very, very lengthy injury report for Houston today. Eric Gordon is at least coming back for them, but Christian Wood is questionable, Jayshawn Tate is questionable, Garrison Matthews is questionable, and Dennis Schroeder is questionable. This is going to be one of those things you guys are going to have to subscribe to the YouTube channel and check out the deeper dive and live before lock later, because who knows who's going to be in or out for Houston, but it's a situation that could potentially deliver on some value upside. But at least as of now, considering the information we know, who do you think could stand to gain the most from all these players being listed as questionable?
So in most cases, I think it's more of a playing time thing than a rates thing. Christian Wood, of the questionable players, Christian Wood's the only, really high usage guy on this team that is questionable. But even with him, you're replacing him with Şengün, who has very similar rates. So I don't think with any of these guys you're looking and saying, oh, Kevin Porter looks drastically better or Jalen Green looks drastically better, maybe marginally better if Wood is out. But I do think that you're on the, potentially you're just getting Houston very shorthanded. If Şengün starts, I would expect him to play around 30 minutes. It would make him look like a very good value option. Again, he has power forward eligibility too, which helps. Garrison Matthews has said he's playing. He's only $3,200. So if any, well, I guess if Tate is out, I would expect Matthews to move into the starting lineup. In that case, 3,200 would look like a pretty good value. If any of these guys are out, you potentially see more minutes for Kenyon Martin Jr. as well. If Schroeder is out, that helps to solidify Matthews' minutes and maybe gives an extra minute or two to, guys like Porter and Green and Gordon as well. So the only player that I think there's like a 1-to-1 kind of exchange is if Wood is out, I fully expect Şengün to just start and play like 30 minutes. Outside of that, I think it's just, as you get more guys, as each additional guy gets ruled out, then your Garrison Matthews, Kenyon Martin Jr. Type players just look more and more appealing based on an increase in playing time.
Yeah, for me, any excuse to play Şengün, any situation where he's in the starting line, we think you play extended minutes. He's proven to be a really good points for a fantasy producer when he's on the court. It's just hard to get him those minutes, but looks like he could have that opportunity if the injury report breaks his way tonight. Another team with an injury report fairly similar in length to what the Houston Rockets have, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards upgraded to questionable after missing a few games. D'Angelo Russell, questionable. Patrick Beverley, questionable. Jared Vanderbilt, questionable. Taurean Prince, questionable. Another one where there's a lot of variables. We're going to need updates later on in the day. Is this a spot against OKC where we're just going to see Karl-Anthony Towns eat if all these guys get rolled out?
Yeah, I would think so. Anthony Edwards is obviously a big piece. You see a nice bump in usage for Towns if he's out. But if you were to get Edwards and Russell out, then you're also expecting to get some more assist opportunities from Towns in addition to the extra usage. It's a very good matchup against OKC as well. He should have plenty of success here. So the only thing sort of that would potentially hold Towns back is that there are a lot of pay-up options tonight. You have Jokic, Giannis, Doncic, Murray, LeBron potentially. So, there's still... It's tough to point to one guy there and say like, oh yeah, I'm very confident he's going to be the best player of the group, but he would look very, very good if Edwards and or Russell are out.
So let's move to the New York Knicks, a team that could really be decimated in the front court today. I mean, as is, we know they're going to be shorthanded in the front court because there is no Nerlens Noel, there is no Obi Toppin, Cam Reddish is out, Quentin Grimes is out, Mitchell Robinson is questionable. If he does not play, I mean, we're left with Taj Gibson potentially playing 30-plus minutes. Realistically, what do you think is the upside for Taj Gibson's playing time if Robinson doesn't play? And is he somebody we're going to want to get to? Because, we're on the later stages of Taj Gibson's career. And if Tibbs wasn't a coach, he probably would have retired like 6 years ago. So there'd be no interest in the services of Taj Gibson. Is this where we're actually going to have to consider him if Robinson isn't out there?
I think so. It's not like it's a ringing endorsement of Gibson. He's only averaged 0.71 DraftKings points per minute this year. But like you were saying, it's, with Toppin out, with Noel out, there's only so many ways that this rotation can go. Like, yeah, you can get some Julius Randle at the 5 if the Knicks wanted to go that route, but that's not even something that they've really done all that frequently this year. And even if you assume that, like, even if you say Randall does play the 5 some, you can still pretty easily find 30 minutes potentially for Gibson if he starts. Sims plays mid-teens off the bench, or you just get them combining for 48. You get like 30 for Gibson, 18 for Sims, something like that. With power forward eligibility, Gibson looks at least like a decent value. I do think that the positional eligibility is important, though, because Tibbs said that if Robinson is out, he's not sure yet who's going to start between Gibson and Sims. I was joking with you before the show that it's obviously Gibson because Tibbs just loves the guy. But there is a difference there where, like, if Sims starts, I think that, you project him for more minutes than Gibson, but he's center only. So it becomes a little bit more difficult to get to him. Whereas with Gibson, it's, just a cheap power forward that you can use.
Yeah, and to your point before, because I just looked up the splits for Julius Randle's minutes at Basketball Reference, he's only played 8% of his minutes at center this year. So is it possible they deviate tonight? Sure, because we haven't seen the Knicks this shorthanded in the front court for most of the season. But even with that said, it's not been how the Knicks use Randle this year. So at least how things stand now, if you were to ask me what happens with the rotation if Robinson doesn't play, we're unfortunately going to have to consider a crappy player like Taj Gibson because he's cheap. And it seems like he'd probably play pretty significant minutes.
Yeah, even looking at the game against Sacramento the other day where, Robinson played 2 minutes and never came back, it was mostly like there wasn't a lot of Julius Randle at the 5. Taj Gibson ended up playing about 26 minutes. Sims played about 11. So you're talking about 37 minutes there, plus the 2 that Robinson played. At most, that's like 9 minutes at center for Julius Randle.
Yeah. So
He did play center down the stretch in that game for whatever it's worth.
Yeah, so we'll have to keep an update on that. I'm sure the starting lineup's going to tell us a lot about what we think that Knicks rotation will look like the rest of the game. Moving on, Brandon Ingram, he is out today. He was questionable yesterday, ultimately ended up getting ruled out. As a result, during the time they were on the court, massive game for CJ McCollum, and was probably on his way to like 60, 65 fantasy points, but the game was a blowout and he just didn't have to play in the fourth quarter. For today, after what we saw yesterday, are we looking to get back to CJ McCollum? He's fairly expensive now.
Yeah, I love it. I'd be okay playing him even if Ingram were in, but obviously with Ingram out, he looks even better. You get a bump in usage, you get a bump in assist percentage. In yesterday's game, he had about a 34.5% usage rate. I expect it to be north of 30% when with Ingram out, and he's playing big minutes as well. Also gets a good matchup against Orlando. And then one other thing is, at least right now, and this certainly could change with 12 games on the slate, but at least right now, we don't have a ton of really good, inexpensive value. A lot of the cheap value pieces we've been using recently have been priced up. And so it makes somebody in McCollum's price range even a little bit easier to get to, because it's kind of difficult to find the extra $3,000 or $4,000 to get to those real top tier guards when you can still get 60 fantasy point upside from McCollum for a lot less.
And one of those spots where we could have some of that value that you referred to is with the Portland Trailblazers here. Anfernee Simons is questionable to play again. The matchup against the Utah Jazz is brutal, but Portland, in addition to Simons being questionable, Justice Winslow is still out. And then obviously no Nurkic, no Dame, no Eric Bledsoe, McCollum no longer there. In this tough matchup, if Simons doesn't play, are you still looking to get to some of the value guys like Brandon Williams, who was excellent last game?
Yeah, but on DraftKings, at least the salaries did adjust. I know Williams is still, I believe, 3,500 on FanDuel, so clearly a top value there. 5,500 on DraftKings. If Simons is out, he looks good. I mean, he played like 33 minutes last game. He's a little shy of a fantasy point per minute guy. Difficult matchup with Utah, but basically playing with Josh Hart and then a bunch of G leaguers, he's going to get plenty of opportunities. But even that, it's 5,500 is nice. It's a good value, but it's not a $3,600 guy that's going to make it easy to get to those top tier payoff options.
Next spot, not an injury, but still going to be important. Domantas Sabonis out. He has been suspended, and also Rashawn Holmes is out due to a personal issue, so he's not with the team. This leaves the Kings pretty shorthanded in the front court for a matchup against the Denver Nuggets, but they're going to need to play some size. You can't just go say like, hey, we're going to play Harrison Barnes at center to guard Nikola Jokic. That's not going to work out. Not that it's going to work out having Trey Lyles guard him, but at the same time, too, not a great situation for Sacramento playing Jokic shorthanded in the front court. How do you see them allocating the minutes here?
I think you're going to get a lot of Damian Jones. He's been the backup center, essentially, played 18 minutes last game. I expect that he'll start and play a nice chunk of minutes. I think right now he looks like one of the best point per dollar values at 3,400. At least assuming that he does start. He is center only, but he's not a bad point per minute producer either, which is nice. So I think right now he looks like a great value. Maybe you get Len in the rotation, assuming he's available. I'm double checking the injury report now, but yeah, he's not on it. So maybe you get a little bit of Alex Len in there, but I think Damian Jones is the one that really opens up as a strong value. You do probably get at least a little bit more Trey Lyles. We had seen outside of that first game where he started, you've basically seen Trey Lyles living in the like 18 to 22 minute range as a starter. Maybe now you get him in that 24 to 26 minute range, but I think the very clear winner is Damian Jones.